On this episode, we talk about how esports can utilize digital.
With so many different platforms,
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube,
and their purposes evolving daily, navigating social media can be, well, complicated. Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast from Cupco.
Social media.
Where we unpack the latest trends and help remove the suck from social media.
Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast by Cupco, you guys. You're tuning in for a dose of marketing. You're tuning in for a dose of marketing and to get what's happening in the ever-changing social media landscape. And today with me, we have our beloved CEO, Chris Carbonos, as always.
What's up?
The cowboy here.
The cowboy.
And then we have Benjamin Boraghi,
Yes.
which is from Astralis. Glad to have you, first of all. Can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
I can. Name is Benjamin. I'm the marketing director at Astralis. I've been with Astralis for almost 5 years now, and I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. Have you any prior experience in the gaming industry? Or how did you land in esports?
I joined Astralis less than a year after finishing at uni. But actually, just when I graduated, I joined a small Danish organization called Copenhagen Flames. Since grown a bit, I was there for 6 to 8 months, I think, and then I reached out to Astralis, and luckily they decided to take a chance on me, and I've been with them ever since. So it's not like I have any past experience in the gaming and entertainment industry, but in these 5 years we've done quite many things that's not just Astralis. So in that sense I have tried my hands at a couple of things in the gaming and entertainment industry.
Yeah. But I guess for some people who are listening or watching, what is Astralis? Because I think that's maybe not everybody knows. Obviously in the gaming industry people do, but
yeah. So Astralis, boiled down, we're a globally leading esports organization. So we have these teams that are competing in various esports titles. That's games, Counterstrike, pretty well-known game, League of Legends, FIFA, Rainbow Six, and then Fortnite. Those are kind of the games that we have either players or teams competing within. Then Astralis also have a gaming center in the heart of Copenhagen called Astralis Nexus.
Fairly new, right?
Fairly new, almost a year old come June. And Astralis Nexus is both, we have a net cafe integrated there, but we also have like a whole B2B space, VIP rooms, auditorium, terrace, and all that stuff. So it's sort of that's why we call it a gaming center. It's so much more. It's actually also an event center almost. And that's sort of the heart of our operation. We also own the majority of a gaming universe called Pixel TV, but that's sort of a separate brand and company, so we don't touch that on a day-to-day basis. So in general, that's Astralis. We have all these esports teams that we run.
Yeah. And what are you guys strongest in? League of Legends or?
So historically speaking, definitely Counterstrike. That's
Counterstrike,
where our core legacy is. We are famously known as the best Counter-Strike global offensive team of all time. We had a sick run in 2018, 2019, going into 2020. But this year, we've actually, I think, surprised everyone in Rainbow Six, finished first in our group and qualified for the major, the sort of World Cup Championship over in NA. That team is located in Las Vegas. We have one of, if not the best, Fortnite player. So we are, expanding and competing. League of Legends, that's probably been the toughest, but we have finished second in the European League once. So we have dipped our toes in the upper echelon there. But Counter-Strike, I think most people would recognize as that's...
Makes sense.
The game as well.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for the elaborate description.
Yeah, sure.
Astralis also have a really big fan base and big following actually on social media. You actually have approximately 2.7 million followers across all platforms, and that's including TikTok, Discord, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, etc. So that's quite a lot. Yeah. So can you share with us your top 3 purposes for you guys being on social media?
Yeah, so boiled down, you're gonna love this. I think this is agency language. I've never been with one, but it's reach, relevance, and revenue. So triple R right there. But I think,
you hear that, folks?
Yeah, right.
We're gonna steal that.
Yeah.
You can feel free. I think that's fairly generic, but it fits. Yeah. So reach, obviously, we want to reach as many people as possible who would be interested in what we do. Relevance. That's so key in everything that we do. We want to engage with our fans, and it's sort of a check mark. We need to be relevant. Everything that we do needs to be relevant for our fans. If it is, then we have a strong product that our partner sponsors, etc.
And an engaging community.
Yes, exactly. And revenue, obviously, at the end of it all, it's a business. That's one of our core values, actually, that we are a business. We take this very seriously. We believe that that's how we end up having success. Also with esports being so fairly new, I think for most people, also people in other industries, it can feel a little bit, wait, why do you have to say that you're a business? But esports is so new, at least on this level, that it's important to us to emphasize that it's more than just a fad. It's an actual business.
Yeah. Also just get recognized as a sport or just a discipline at least,
exactly, right? Like a serious entertainment product, basically. So being able to generate proper revenue through merchandise sales and other the direct to consumer products, that's key to us. So those 3 are like the main purposes, because what we do on digital and social media is sort of key in driving that.
Of course, interesting. Let's go into this community you have then of your fans, because with a big following, it's a big community.
Yes.
And how do you then manage so many, channels with this many followers? That needs different stuff on different channels, right? Exactly,
and I think that's key to remember. But just to make it clear, we're quite a big team, right? We have been growing. Just in the past couple of years, we've been, multiplying in size in terms of employees. So the whole marketing department consists of both content team, digital team, and the content team obviously produces a lot of the stuff that goes out on the channels, but it's the digital team that manages the day-to-day with community, with social media. And so it starts there. And then it's just super important for us to treat each platform to its own. I think we, in the past, to be transparent, maybe haven't done a good enough job of respecting that there is quite a big difference in, for example, creating content for YouTube versus Twitter versus now TikTok. So it's usually the place that we start. Like, what's the whole purpose? What's the platform? How do we make sure that what we do on this particular platform speaks to the strengths? So instead of working against it, we let those trends and those the algorithm and all that stuff, technical stuff, work for us. So it's the same with the community.
It's different everywhere.
It's different everywhere. We have started to work a lot with data. I think in the past, and I think that's general also for every industry, but we've started to respect that we cannot just come up with hypotheses on how is our audience on this platform or in general, like they can, and especially with gamers, like there are, I think, around 3.2 billion gamers in the world, and that's also mobile gaming and everything, but you cannot put everyone into like the same segment. There can be 13-year-old girl from Korea can be super into League of Legends, and I'm a 31-year-old man from Denmark. I'm also super into League of Legends, so we might be pretty different in our interest and all that. So data is so important if we want to know who we speak to on each platform. So without that, we would just be speaking blindly almost.
Sweet music to your ears, huh?
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're experiencing something that a lot of industries have in the past. I would say 2 or 3 years. Like at least our customers or clients are asking for specific strategies per platform. Whereas it was more ubiquitous, like sort of like give us a social strategy, but it really has separated. It really has, and also I think it's matured. Social media is not seen as sort of like this offshoot anymore. It's seen as like a main channel, if not the main channel. So it's like it's getting the weight and sort of the consideration that it deserves. That means that you need to look at the data very closely, and you need to sort of really have specific strategies for each sort of thing. So I think you guys are probably in the same boat as many customers, which is music to my ears, because I think that's what's needed, right?
Yeah, so, definitely. Also, just not only getting the data, but actually knowing how to use the data. That's the most important part, right? Actually,
that's the tough part.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people, companies, they do a lot of work, groundwork when it comes to data, harvesting, all that stuff, and then they don't know how to use it because they didn't have a plan. Yeah,
you need to access the relevant metrics so you can keep developing you guys' content, right? And optimize it for your audience.
Is there something in the data that shows you, like, maybe this is a really horrible question, but is there a red thread? Like, if you could pinpoint something that works extremely well across platforms or across audiences, like for your guys' community, is there one thing that stands out as like, oh yeah, this always performs, like, people love this?
Yeah. So I think, and that's not only for gaming and esports, but memes work well right now and have been. I think actually in esports we were kind of one of the first industries to pick up memeing, and I think the real exercise now is not just to be meme, but to have some deeper purpose when you do it, instead of just doing it more blindly, because then you'll just be an off version of 9gag, right? You don't want that. That's not good for your brand. I think there are some trends, but we really, really try to respect each platform. So Facebook, for us, for example, we have a more mature audience, more Danish people there than the average platform. We know that we speak to more parents and older stakeholders on Facebook versus Instagram and Twitter, for example. So while there are some, red thread across, we try to almost ignore it, or at least put some more time into treating each platform to its own. So we avoid that trap of just creating, or cross-posting content that won't work on every channel.
Yeah, that's always a trap, right? I think. But I do think there's still stuff that can work if you just tweak it a little bit. But specifically TikTok, I think TikTok really opened a lot of people's eyes in the last year and a half or so, where it's like, this is extremely different than everything else. Like, we can't just, and then of course that sort of cascaded into the other platforms, really going, okay, this is specific for Instagram, this is specific. YouTube's always been an outlier on its own anyway, right? But then TikTok really sort of opened it up in some ways.
We treat TikTok as we do with YouTube. Like that's completely on its own, because the content is so unique. And then sometimes we test it, right? So we have had TikTok content smash on Facebook. Like it just hits the algorithm and then it works, right? But it's not like a core part of our strategy to always cross-post it. We do that with Reels on Instagram too, right? And when we have the TikToks, we test it there as well. In general, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is where we've had the most, coherent content. We can see that the type of videos that we produce for socials work pretty well across all platforms. And obviously there's also the whole, we're very commercially driven. We have a lot of partners and we want to do everything we can to kind of
cater to that.
Cater to them and that, and make it a successful partnership.
You're also kind of a media, like you've kind of a media brand, right?
Yes.
So you have to not just be like, here we're talking about our latest, win or our latest team member. Like, it's also like, here's Velux and here's this, sponsor, and this is what we're doing with them.
Yes.
So it's tough. Like you're selling sort of multiple things, right? So you have to kind of, and also you can't be too commercial, because then your fans go, what the hell is this? Like, why are you guys jamming Velux down my throat every week? Like, what does that have to do with winning this tournament?
It's such a fun exercise. I think that whole thing about being too commercial, we've actually sort of banned that particular phrase in our office, just because it sort of led to that we took a step too far in ignoring what we could do commercially. And I have this mantra almost, that if you're good enough at thinking outside in, positioning the fans first, so to speak, in your creative phase, then you can get away with a lot of stuff commercially. And these brands, they aren't interested in us pushing out content that the fans don't like.
No, they also want they also want it to be right and relevant.
Exactly.
Right? So,
that's why they signed with us in the first place, because we have that connection to the fans. So I think you can almost always make it work. But
it's a full circle.
It is.
You have to make it coherent.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the interesting here is that you have so many different stakeholders and different channels. Do you notice any, can you just elaborate? Obviously, there should be and is a difference. But do you notice like a significant difference in the behaviors from your community within the different channels?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, we're also a listed company, obviously. So we also have stakeholders that they have invested in us. They react in a certain way, but mostly it's private through email and whatnot. I think in most cases when we see the different reactions, it's at least easiest to spot when we, for example, lose a game and we put out, the classic, we lost, we'll get better for the next one, without becoming too generic. Then we can see that the amount of support versus hate that we get, it differs, and it's usually dependent on the maturity of the audience. It's a bit younger on some platforms than the others. Right. Twitter, for example. So and a lot of Twitter profiles are also anonymous. So I think
you get a ton of like spam or ton of spam, but like sort of haters.
Yes, basically, and people lose money sometimes on our games, and that leads to more toxicity, right? Whereas on I think on Facebook in general, we get maybe a bit more support even in tough times.
More positive.
We're blessed. Like I think we have a really, really strong brand and fan base, so they support us through thick and thin, and we have been through thick and thin for quite a while now. So I'm not gonna sit here and complain. It's also like that passion in general is that's what we want.
But sports teams, I mean, historically, like take shit all the time. Like, even if you are a fan, like fans of sports teams.
Yeah, but people invested like, with the
they love it, right? So that's like they're going out there being like, oh, that guy's such a bum, and and it's part of the culture in some ways to like even hate on your own team, like.
But is it the same with soccer? I notice that people say no, like they have this saying like when the team wins it's a we, but when the team loses it's a they.
Yeah, exactly. Those assholes.
Yeah, exactly.
They lost.
I think that's pretty well put.
Yeah.
In general, like I'd much rather have that passion, good or bad, than people not caring. Like that's the worst. That's my nightmare. Yeah. If we lose a game or even win a game and people don't give a rat's ass, then we're in trouble, right? It's I think where we draw the line. What's not okay is when they get personal towards the players, hit them up with toxic DMs and whatnot. Yeah. That should never happen. But all that passion, they can call us out, they can say that we're crap and all that stuff. Bring it. Like we want that passion.
Yeah, it's engagement. I mean, it's showing they care somehow, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go into how does your Astralis leverage all these social media channels you guys have. So do you create something? Do you intend in your strategy to create something with synergy across all channels? Or I noticed you said that you treat each channel as their own. But is there content or in your content strategy where it's like, this is the third? Or
of course there is. I think it's also it's a balance because the Astralis brand, it's not like it differs from each channel. Like we have our core values, we have our purpose and vision set in place, and that's sort of our foundation for all that we do. But I think our TikTok followers perhaps have a different take on our brand and our identity compared to Twitter, and that's where we sort of maybe tweak a bit. But in general, we produce, I think, a lot of what people would call maybe some hero content. I think that's an expression that's also used in the
with the strong narrative, right?
Yes, exactly. And that works on most of our platforms. So YouTube, Facebook, even Instagram, and also Twitter. can hold up to that.
But that requires a lot, right?
It does.
When you create hero pieces constantly, it's a big machine that needs to be up and running, and you have to have a lot of stories to tell.
Yes.
Nonetheless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you found that it's changed? Like we're actually seeing a quite different approach to social the last couple of years, where brands have sort of really wanted always on content and as much content as possible. Whereas I think now they're leaning towards, we want bigger impact and like more activations that are like hero pieces. Are you finding that also switch with you guys?
Yeah. It's so fun that you said we've been talking quite a lot about it for these past months, because in general, I think our foundation is rock solid. We're really good at the always on stuff.
Yeah.
But we can see that if we don't do the stuff that's bigger, whether that being, hero content or larger campaigns, then we don't have that same impact on our fans and ultimately for our partners. So yes, definitely that's something that we work to.
Becoming more important.
It does.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's at least what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Like, so it's funny that you guys also see that.
We can see it. The impact, the effect. It's different. We couldn't get by without our always on track, so to speak. But I think when you nail it, which I would believe with that we have, then that's a machine on its own, and it just runs smoothly. So now the exercise is more to build on that, to have that big impact, and that's how we're relevant to our fans ultimately. They need to be proud of what we do, not only when we play games, because you cannot promise results, right? We can have extended periods of time where we don't win necessarily. Right. So how do we impact? How do we stay relevant to our fans?
And still engage them.
Yes, and that's where social media and what we do on digital is key.
Of course. Do you have any channels you think has more potential than others? Or is there channels you guys are like, this is our main channels, and then we
I hear
just
MySpace is really great.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Back.
We pour all our resources into
MySpace. BeReal.
Yeah.
BeReal. You can't advertise on BeReal yet, though.
No,
I mean, that's a shame.
I hate that. I hate BeReal.
Yeah.
It's just,
no.
You want to hear why? You want to hear why?
Yes,
because
okay.
I'm actually afraid that BeReal becomes the opposite of what it wants to be. So
BeVague.
Yes. So people know you only have this app. You only have this window to show your real self, right?
Yeah.
My worry is that at some point people will be obsessed with having that that truly dream scenario BeReal moment.
Okay.
So they prep and they wait and they get all panicky. When does it come? And that can be like, drive a person insane.
Yeah.
So that's my worry, that it becomes
people on
some
social
sort of
media is already
Black Mirror,
it's already insane.
kind of episode.
Yeah, I think
where
you're right,
everyone's
though.
just sitting and waiting. Oh, is my hair right? And then
Wow. Okay.
notification. So that's my worry with BeReal. I know it's far out there, but
I don't know,
actually,
maybe it
just
could be
because
right.
we see every single app, like Instagram, the purpose was the same, like put it out instantly, and it just turned into something
course.
where you prep and you schedule and all that stuff. So
There's
it's
a campaign in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Where you have
Could
like
be.
your entire team like in a pose.
Yeah.
Just like, it's like, we're ready.
There you go.
Let's go.
There you go.
It's like, what? How did you guys get this BeReal? It's like
Exactly.
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Right?
That'd be fun to toy around.
Well,
with.
it's a little bit hard to get the perfect BeReal, in my opinion. Also because you're very selective about who you're friends with.
Yeah.
So it's like
It's more nuanced than that.
exactly.
But
I mean, but that's the thing, right? With all different platforms, it kind of evolves and it changes and whatsoever. So that's kind of the natural order of things.
Yeah.
But
Like going back to your
but going to
your
the
original
original
question.
question,
Sorry,
which is
I
any
went off
channels
track
that
there.
you know, any channels that you really are your main guys' focus? I mean, YouTube definitely, and Twitch.
Yeah, so our main channels, we see them, and I'm just gonna list them.
Yeah.
That's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's YouTube, TikTok, Twitch to some extent, but we haven't really nailed it yet. And then Discord. And then we also have our newsletter, which I guess that's not social media in particular, but it's very key in our digital strategy. So those are our main channels, and we actually believe in all of them, but we also are very aware of the strengths and weaknesses. And that's both, when it comes to commercial activation, when it comes to community and brand and all. So I think if we want to look at growth in like a vacuum, TikTok obviously has much more potential. Yeah. We have a harder time growing on Instagram, for example, but we have a pretty big audience on Instagram already, so we use that in a different way. And with TikTok, because some of the I guess funneling features on TikTok aren't as good yet as the other platforms. A lot of the stuff
it's maturing.
Exactly. A lot of the stuff that we do there is more about it's growing, it's branding, it's awareness, right? It's big reach. With Twitter and Facebook, while we still want to grow, we still want to reach a lot of people, a lot of our focus is also to drive people to the channels where we can create better communities, where we are more in touch and connected with, let's call them our fans or our followers, because we actually believe we get followers first and then we can turn them into fans. And those platforms are like Discord, key in community engagement, and then the newsletter. We can see, because we've now dealt with social media with Astralis for so many years now, that because the platforms change and sometimes it just becomes harder to grow and reach people, then a lot of what we do has to like move on, both in the sense of exploring new media, new platforms, but also moving them to places where we are more in control, like owned media such as our newsletters. So everyone is sort of a main channel, but they have a very strict purpose.
That's actually very interesting, because then how do you strategize? Do you have, what's your different KPIs and metrics that you use? Do you have channel specific KPIs, for instance, or do you have an overall?
We have both.
Where that goes?
We have both. So in short, without boring you too much, our strategy is,
this is
like
not boring for us.
a funnel, right? And it's very cliche, but that's how we treat it. We believe that we can actually reach a lot of people outside of our own channel ecosystem, people watching on other Twitch channels, on Flow TV, reading about us in the mainstream media, all of, like, we can reach them there. They can at least learn about Astralis. And then we use Top Funnel, that's our social media, right? So that's where we draw them in and they learn about Astralis. And those channels have specific KPIs. And that would be channels such as Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And it's classic social media channels. And then when we have shown these people that, hey, it's awesome to follow Astralis, I get so much value here and I really enjoy it, then we start to expose them to our newsletter, for example. If we at any point get an app or it could be something else owned, then we try to convert them into subscribers for our newsletter.
Just closer down the line.
Yes.
So that they're...
So our newsletter, for example, have, that KPIs for that. That's obviously leads, CTR and such. We want to uphold like an open rate and click-through rate, because we can also see that we're actually able to turn a lot of newsletter subscribers into customers. And again, that's the end goal, right? We need to generate revenue, but not at every cost, because our fans need to get value. Each social media platform, we focus a lot on engagement. While we do want to grow, it's back to where... On TikTok, for example, it makes sense to put resources into like growth-specific stuff. We want to hit the algorithm. We want to get a big reach. We can see that it turns into growth. Whereas on Instagram and Facebook, it's much harder to grow now, organically at least.
Definitely.
So we'd much rather focus on upholding engagement rate and get larger engagement, because we believe that engagement is the social media metric that's... best translated into commitment and loyalty, and that it's the whole fan loyalty that we're seeking for, right? So engagement goes across everything basically in terms of key KPIs, and growth is, our growth targets differs quite a lot.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense, because then it's with engagement, they are kind of deeper in the ecosystem and then closer to revenue.
We want people who want to engage. We want to engage with people who engage with us, like and
of course.
An engaging follower is so much more valuable to us than a passive one is. So we really try our best to create these communities within every single platform, because that's the key focus of a community, right? It's the engagement and that you have with your fellows.
Of course.
Yeah.
Let's touch upon the challenges and the benefits of being you guys then, because as we mentioned earlier, like esports, it's having a hard time getting recognized in the first place, right? As a sports, and then getting kind of this, even though it's a big community, it's still so unknown for a lot of people. So can you share with us, you know, the status of gaming, the evolution of gaming in the entertainment industry on social media?
I can. And first of all, it's moving so fast. So I get the the idea of it being unknown, but it's soon surpassing 500 million online viewers.
That's
on
like
a yearly
TikTok,
basis.
right? When it started, like
it's the growth is insane, and on that measurement, it's outgrowing the music streaming industry and like Hollywood and everything. It's growing so fast, and that's just people watching other people's play video games, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when I was a kid, I would listen to hours of music. My kids watch hours of esports.
Yes.
Like that's like, it's a totally different sort of ball game, right?
Exactly. So I think we've, in that sense, I don't even want to mainstream or not, it's so big that it cannot be denied or ignored. And as I said earlier, 3.2 billion gamers, I think, or at least people who either play games on their phones, on PlayStations, Xbox, and computer.
Yeah,
it's massive. So I don't think we're challenged in the sense that, you know, about it being recognized per se. It comes with other challenges. Obviously, the naysayers, it's not a sport.
Yeah,
and we can argue about esports being a sport or not to the end of days. That's not our focus. To us, it's entertainment.
Yeah,
it's everything else. It's community. It's all of these things. And then there can be people who want to deny it as a sport, and others who claim that it is. My personal opinion, I don't care too much. I can just see that these athletes are outperforming average people in every sense, like and esports and competition it's about reactions and communications and mechanics, and like it's insane what these people are capable of. So to me, that I think if you want to measure sports in that sense, then it completely checks all the boxes. But I don't mind that too much.
It's like a little bit like poker or like
chess,
those are all chess. Like I mean, they're still considered. I don't know. Are they considered sports though? Like, but it is tough. But I do agree. Like anybody who has been up against any decent player in Fortnite or in any that you get your ass handed to you, and you're like, oh my God, what just happened? And you realize very quickly like that this person's reaction time, their hand-eye coordination, like everything is on a totally different level.
Exactly. And then we have, again, I don't know if maybe they're just a bit naive, then they always come up with, oh man, I should have played more video games when I was young.
Yeah, but
I promise you, dude, it wouldn't have mattered. Like we've tested our players like in tests that, you know, professional pilots do, professional athletes, and like some of them are just insane.
Of course,
they're built for it. It's natural. It's
discipline,
talent.
stamina,
it's
decision making.
Right? It's not everybody.
It is, and then you can practice it like in regular sports. But to us, the focus is not too much on that discussion.
Yeah,
our focus is still to get it recognized within the mainstream and all these stakeholders. Like we want the parents and grandparents not just to accept that esports and gaming is a thing, but to encourage it, like acknowledge it. Like when we are succeeding, I think with our vision, it's more so, it's having a dad or a mom or a grandparent even saying to a kid, hey, why don't you take classes in Counterstrike, or why don't you go to Counterstrike the same way that you can go play football or handball or whatever it is that people practice of regular sports. I think that's when we succeed, when you don't just accept that its existence, but actually encourage that young kids can do this.
Of course.
I think that's a pretty central lighthouse for us, guiding star.
How does the competition look like in terms of, you know, other athletes or brands and content creation wise? I don't know if you guys have noticed anything. I mean, you probably have extensive market research, but maybe I know you dabble into. these
areas
as well?
I mean, I must say, like, it's not an area that I do a lot of following every single team. Like, I notice what you guys do. That's pretty much it. But maybe the North, like I've been seeing them a bit. I think it's North, or is it the North?
North. Yeah. But they're actually done for now.
Yeah. So
they're
like,
not anymore.
No, they're not anymore. So it's like I've seen what they've done on social, and that was quite interesting. And they kind of did what you guys did, like building a content hub, like really like doing a lot of content. So that was interesting to see. But other than that, I haven't really followed any other teams, right? So I don't have a deep knowledge in it.
And I think there are some things that are the same across. So some brands or organizations do what we do. They're very team focused. Obviously, we have Astralis Nexus, which that's rare, but a lot of organizations focus on having X amount of teams competing in different esports titles, and that's how they build their brand. Other organizations are very focused on content creators, YouTubers, influencers, and sort of build their brand through them. And a lot are starting to mix it up.
Yeah.
So competition-wise, we have a lot. I think that we all fight for attention, right? And that's also why I mentioned the whole owned media thing. Like, there's only so much time and attention for each fan, and because we are exposed through the same channels, like every single esports organization is on Twitter, the best are broadcast on Twitch, etc. Right? So we're fighting for the same attention, and that's the core of the competition, right? But I think that the main thing is that some are focusing a lot on content creators and less so on having all these elite teams, and others like us are focusing more on the team side of things, and are dipping our toes in the content creator pool. In general, it's a lot about the human side of it. I think that's also one of the strengths with esports and gaming, that we have the ability to put human faces in front of the brand, players, talent, creators, influencers, and such, and that brings that warmth, softness to the brand that, you know, a lot of other brands can't have in the same way,
because they don't have team, like they don't have like
exactly,
they don't have like people like that such way, right? You know,
exactly,
like,
and even though our teams with players, that they're athletes first, right? They are there to compete, to perform and to create results. Esports is still much more at eye level, so to speak, than regular sports. Like, there are millions of fans who think of our players as their Ronaldos or Messis, right?
Yeah.
For real, they are almost fanatics, right? They're huge fans. They stand in line for hours to meet them, to get their autographs. You can't do that with Ronaldo and Messi. Like, there's this big filter and a gap or distance between. So that's what esports can do. And I think the reason why we see more creators, more streamers, YouTubers, etc., is because they're content first. So they are naturals at, you know, doing engaging with people and fans, and that's so interesting to brands, because then they can put other sponsors and such behind it and really bring value, right?
Yeah, traditional sports stars are getting better.
Yes,
and I think that's
true.
That's been a large, like, sort of probably push also from teams, and also like their managers and agents have said, like, hey, if you're good at social and you're a soccer player, like, or you're a you know, baseball player, or whatever the hell you are, then you're more likely to sign a bigger deal, and you're more likely to get this sponsorship, and that's why we've seen guys like LeBron build a brand, like
an empire.
Yeah, an empire, right? And obviously like that. And the good thing about your organization is that your people, your team, they're naturally towards that because they are esports players, right?
Yes.
So that's a good benefit for you guys.
Absolutely.
So lastly, future perspectives. What's I want to hear both you guys' opinion, but Benjamin first with this one is future goals for Astralis.
Well,
on social media. mostly on the digital
yes,
wave.
Sure. We've kind of
win
been
every
through it.
tournament.
With
Every tournament. Every
obviously
cup.
that's sort of out of my hands. No, I think we've kind of been through it. We have our foundation. We want to have more impact day to day, month to month, year to year. We want to remain relevant, and I think how we do that is just to bring true value to our fans. I think that's what not only us but everyone is searching for, is how can we create something for our fans, one-offs or even like these universes of stuff of that gives back to the fans, so they feel like they're a part of something. We have the privilege of having players like we just talked about, that's sort of the bridge, that whole connection is where the true value lies. And if we can exploit is perhaps a wrong word to use, but if we can utilize that connection, if we can show that the fans that if they are a part of the Astralis family, that the communities that we build, then they get value, and that's how we stay relevant. And then ultimately, I think we can create that whole great retentive ecosystem where we give back. It's fun to follow Astralis. It's fun to be a fan of Astralis, an ambassador of Astralis. Win or lose, they buy our products. We give. If
makes organic revenue
that's how we get success through digital. At the end of it all.
Any advice you guys would give other marketers on in the gaming entertainment industry?
So my advice would be, growth is fine, but in a vacuum, it's nothing. Like you can have 500,000 Instagram followers. If you're not able to contextualize that following and actually utilize it, it's worth zero. Maybe it has some signal value, and of course, a lot of brands look to it. Wow, that's a lot of followers. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a long-term benefit if that's all you got. So you need to utilize that following, whether that's through engagement, through funneling them onto other places where you can utilize it better. I think that would be my main advice. So don't be scared to kind of leave a big Instagram account behind if you can't. Like, then put your focus into platforms, into places where you can actually utilize, because you have done your branding exercise in getting to that point of 500k followers. Like people that have followed you, that have been exposed to you through Instagram, they now know your brand. They know Astralis, and then there are plenty of ways that you can reach them again on the platform that they have perhaps diverted to. And if they watch you on TV or wherever it is, then they know of you. That whole recognizability is already there. So that would be my advice, I think.
Great.
Yeah, I would just second that. I think it's great. I think I think one of the things that you guys do well, or at least what esports has done well, is make you guys very accessible. Like your team is accessible, the brand is accessible, you can DM, like you can take part in the conversations, you have a Discord, like all of these things that a lot of brands are afraid to do. They're afraid to actually converse with their audience and have a discussion. I think like other brands can take advice from you guys in that, or take a note from you guys to say, like, how do you take this team atmosphere or this sport atmosphere, like a community atmosphere, and really bring it to the brand and open up. I think it's what makes you guys successful, and it makes when you guys do lose that, you do have a discussion, you do have like people rooting for you and stuff like that, right? So
it's such a good point. Like that whole thing about listening, just listening, that's what you do with data also, right? And reading it, that's sort of a way of listening to your fans in good or bad times. And I think that's so key. If you ignore them, then accessibility is fine, but then you won't know what they're into.
And it doesn't matter that you build all this great audience or all this content, because nobody's gonna see it or care about it, because you didn't care for your community first and foremost.
Like accessibility wise, we just yesterday did an hour-long AMA with one of our star players. That's hella unique, and these fans, these Discord members, they love it. If no one showed up, we wouldn't do it again, because if we did, we wouldn't be listening. Then we would just fine with the accessibility. But no one cares, right? So yeah, if you can nail those two things, then
and I think it's also like, it's nice because also your fans are also players themselves, right? So it's like they can. That's why I think like you guys have a unique industry in the sense, like, because you say 3.2 billion people are playing games, and then, you know, I can go and ask, hey, what about this win that you did on League of Legends or Counterstrike? Like, what techniques are you using? Like, how do you think about strategy? Like, I think that's where, you know, you wouldn't go to LeBron, I just bring it up, or Tiger Woods and be like, how did you make that 15-foot putt? Like, no one asks those questions, like, because they're not. It's not the same fan base. It's a totally different sort of world that you guys live in. And I think that's really your guys' strength. And if you can lean into that, which you guys are, it really has grown you guys. So I think it's really special.
It is insane that the whole aspirational part of things, there are so many people that aspire to become, you know, star players. And we have the opportunity to educate, to create tutorials through the stars themselves, right? We are of course exploring more about that, because I think the opportunity is endless, and sometimes it isn't. And maybe I'm a bit harsh here, but I think even sometimes the fans kind of take it for granted, right? when we've in the past put out a tutorial on YouTube, gets 50k views or something, and I'm like, this is insane. If LeBron did this,
exactly. If LeBron's like, hey, here's how do you do a really good jump shot, like, there'd be like 1 million views, like in 2 seconds, right?
And I know it's maybe also comparing apples and origins, in because basketball has existed for so much longer and everything around it. But still, sometimes I think, wow, you take all this free stuff for granted. Another challenge of esports is obviously that so much is free, right?
When you guys have an app, you can just put it on paid, on the paid accounts, and then you can access all the tutorials.
But then you have the competition doing it for free, right? So YouTube and
but then it's not from Astralis, right? So I mean,
that's the key thing, right?
Exactly.
So
you want to take it for the top athletes, right?
But obviously a challenge. Just to circle back, I think that's an interesting topic, but just really quickly, there is so much free content out there. All the broadcasts are free, everything, and everyone is sort of fighting. How do we nail this? In regular sports media rights, that's everything, right? And esports, right now we don't have the same luxury.
No, it's more free.
It is.
Which I think is going to change. Like, if we're looking at the future, I think you're going to see this clamp down a bit. Like, and it's going to be, you know, ESPN is licensing this specific thing, or like whatever it's going to be, which is going to be interesting, because I think the audience will start to also change. Like, you'll have less players that are fans and more just straight fans that are like, oh, I've never played Counterstrike in my life, but I love watching it. Like, so that'll be a switch, and then it'll be way more ubiquitous. And I think also, I mean, VR and the Metaverse will also have a big impact, where, you know, people will be just putting on their goggles and sort of being at the esports stadium.
My dream, like my true dream, is to fill up a stadium with fans, and then you have this holographic map. Let's use Counterstrike as an example.
Could be so you can see like where they are
on the field.
Yeah, that's fun.
And then you have players each side. They're obviously playing, but what's actually shown, that's the characters, the avatars, so to speak, and then they run around. So it's like being there and watching that.
In the arena, kind of.
Yeah, that's my dream. I think that would be insane.
I don't think it's too far off.
No. I don't either.
I think I would like to see that, actually.
Exactly.
Like, even though I don't play
Korea
anything.
and in China, we have had, you know, filled stadiums with 50,000 people watching esports,
that's
like
amazing.
Olympic stadiums, World Cup stadiums, and just to touch on what you're saying about, you know, people just being fans and not gamers or players themselves. We're also seeing that, you know, with now there are multiple generations, like people becoming parents and you know, teaching and raising their kids to becoming fans of the same team that they've been fans of, and that's fun. That's really fun.
It's really like seeing, because that's what happened for every other sport, like team sport, right? And it's funny seeing the inception of it for esports, right? So I think it's an area that you, like, if you want a front seat to history, like, follow esports, because it's just, it's going to be the thing. We all can see that, I think. So,
interesting. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And let me summarize the very great points you guys made, which is for you guys, for Astralis, you're using social media with 3 purposes. which is reach, relevance, and revenue. And then having a big brand and large fan base, it's a lot of work. So you need to have a big enough team to manage all this content and marketing, and then of course treat each platform as its own. And then you have to create the content that fits the platforms and your brand purpose. And not only knowing data, but how to use the data is very important to know your audience and then segment them and communicate with the right content to them on social. And also knowing the social trends, but always stay true to your brand image and your values. And then the biggest advice you guys have for the marketers out there in the entertainment and esports industry is you have to be able to contextualize and utilize your following. Put your focus into the platforms where you can bring the most value to your community. Think fans first, and then make you relevant, and that makes your commercial content even more coherent. And by making your brand accessible, you can easily converse with your fans, your audience, and that way nurture and engage your community. So the key takeaway point here is listen to your fans.
Wow.
Thank you, guys.
That was an amazing wrap up.
Thank you.
Was.
Holy crap. I'm going to write that down on some slides.
Yeah,
and
of course.
That is the blueprint.
It was too good. It was too good of a TLDR. So
I have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you so much, Hara, also for taking notes. So guys, here you have it. Subscribe, leave your likes, your comments, your feedbacks with us, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
This has been the Social Media Sucks Podcast.